If I can say anything about this today, this thing feels solid. Like no give, 4.5 pounds of raw defensive capability in your hand right now. Yes, another battery, but I was really curious about this thing, and let me tell you why. What's up YouTube, Jason here with Byte My Bits, and in today's video, I want to talk about the Anzene EnergyBlock, the quote, ultimate outdoor optimized power station. Now you might be asking what that means, and really short and simple is this thing is not indestructible, because come on, anything is destructible. Outdoor optimized means that it is meant to travel with you and it can take a beating, which was one of the main reasons why I was kind of curious about it. It's like, okay, something built well enough to be able to be dropped out of a building, ran over by a car, or a number of other things that other people in other YouTube videos have done. By the way, I did not do. I prefer to keep this thing looking fresh. That way, if I do want to utilize it in my everyday life, it's not beat to crap. But trust me, there are plenty of videos out there where people have ran these over with cars, dropped them out of castles, set them on fire, put them in ponds, all kinds of things, and they still work. Which to me is a little fascinating because in today's world, just about everything will break if you sneeze on it. So it's kind of interesting to see a product like this big, that has pretty good power capabilities, be able to withstand so much. Before I jump into the specs, I do want to disclose, yes, they did send this out for testing, but it's kind of like the pre-production model. So this one's red. They are going to be selling red. They also have a gold, but the primary one is just black. Also, the primary one has a handle at the top where this one does not. So this is like pre-production. Check it out. I've actually had it for a while. I've been testing it in various environments, both here in my little lab setup, and I took it on a camping trip as well. Proved very useful, but I have had it for a while, and I have some interesting thoughts on it. But let's jump right into the specs of this Anzene optimized outdoor power station. This 4.41 pound box has a total capacity of 300 watt hours or 80,000 milliamp hours. It can put out a total of 300 watts worth of power or 500 watts in surge power. With the base station and AC adapter, you can recharge this in 2 hours, and internally it runs off of a 36 volt cell system. Now it is IP67 rated for water resistance. I hate saying waterproof or fireproof, like nothing's proof anything, it's just resistant. Along with that, it is also safety fire resistant, explosive proof, which, you know, when it comes to the explosive proof here, here's the interesting thing. On the bottom, it has this like little relief valve for pressure. So like if pressure builds up, heat, whatever, it'll actually expel, which is kind of cool. Because this whole thing is, you know, water resistant or IP67 waterproof, how they put it, you know, it's not just all open. So this thing will open up just in case it does have too much pressure. It also has a compressed canister or something inside of it that's almost like just a fire extinguisher you'd find in a commercial building. And if it does catch on fire, within 3 seconds, that thing goes off and it puts the fire out. That's a very interesting feature. And I think that when it comes to safety, that's kind of cool. I don't think I've ever reviewed any even like bigger power stations that have any sort of anti-explosion thing implemented into it. So that by itself makes this thing intriguing and probably worth a look at. So that by itself just makes this thing very intriguing. It's also dust proof, and what you see here, this is the main battery. This is the DC module that goes into the bottom. But basically it's got these little bearings here and it just clips right on, stays put, whatever. And you have the option for an AC version. So you can actually have this with an AC inverter that gives you about 300 watts worth of power. So it's kind of interesting. They didn't send that to me, so I can't test it or say anything more about it, but it's an option. What I can say about the DC out, they're really nice here, is that they put all of the ratings, like what every port can do. We have 2 USB, like 2.0, 3.0 ports, and then we have 2 USB-C ports. Now the USB-C ports can go from 5 volt 3 amp all the way up to 20 volt 5 amp. So yes, do a little bit of math here. 20 times 5 is 100 watts, which means you can do 100 watts out of this USB Type-C port. This is specifically awesome for things like laptops that can use a USB Type-C to recharge. The other USB ports can go from 5 volt 3 amp all the way up to 12 volt 1.5 amp. On the side, you have 2 charging ports. And even though they look the same, they are actually, the pin inside's a little bit different, just so you don't accidentally plug in, let's say, the wall adapter into the solar side here. But the solar can handle 15 to 22 volts at 5 amps, which they actually sell like a 100-watt solar panel. Again, didn't send that or anything, but it is something that they sell. But I would imagine as long as you have a panel somewhat within this range, you can use whatever. And the wall input is 42 volts at 2 amps, which is this right here. This is the input. I want to really say stuff about that. Let me start positive. If you do not take a module with you, you still have 2 USB ports here, one USB-C and the Type A. And then you have a 19 volt by 3 amp DC out. It's like a little tiny plug. I didn't even hook anything up to this plug. I don't have anything that runs off this, but it is there. But as far as ports go, if you don't have that DC thing with you, that's all you got. You got 2 USB ports and the mini plug. And last but not least, on just this block, powering on is as simple as just touching the screen, right? It has 4 bars that lights up that gives you an indicator of how much it's charged. But something to take note here is that this thing will turn off automatically within 15 seconds. Just any second now. And there you go, it's off. The reason why I say it like that is because when I took this, like using it in real life, like I put it on a table when we were camping and it was sitting there and I had a couple cables plugged into it. Someone would like turn it on and one person was trying to charge a phone and like they were doing something, whatever, they unplugged and the power wasn't being used, so the thing turned off. And it was 15 seconds, pretty short to have to turn it back on. So then they go and they plug it in, they're like, oh, this thing's not working. And they're like, hey, Jason. So I had to go over there and just turn it on. It's like, okay, 15 seconds is kind of aggressive, especially if plugging something into the ports doesn't automatically activate the port. Like it would be totally fine if I plugged in my phone with this thing turned off and the thing turned on. You might ask, then what's the point of a power button if all you have to do is plug something in? I don't know. I'm just giving you a real world example of where I had to provide miniature tech support as to why this thing, shiny, brand new, sitting on a table, was not charging somebody's phone. That's all. Once it's turned on, of course, it works perfectly. At least that's what I would say if it did. Now, what I'm going to say, bear in mind, this company's probably not gonna like me just mentioning this because it's something that this is like a Kickstarter thing, so they're trying to get backing, so of course, take that with a grain of salt, I guess. What I found out is that the USB Type-C port on the power block itself on this specific brick does not work. I would imagine that this is just a flaw in this one. I mean, like I said, this is pre-production. Obviously, they're not gonna send out, units that have USB-C ports that don't work. But, I mean, I can't ignore it. Right? It doesn't work. It does not charge a phone. I can take this same thing, plug it into back down here, starts charging my phone. Plug it in to this other one, starts charging my phone. Take the regular USB, plug it into here, there we go. Starts charging my phone. But this USB Type-C has 0 output. It's broken. It's probably, again, this specific device, for whatever reason, that port does not work. And since I've already kind of started this conversation, let's really go down the rabbit hole of the thoughts that I've had and things that I found and a concern I have, which is going to be the DC module. So everything that I said with this having to be activated in order for the ports to work, that's true. You turn this on, the ports turn on. That does not apply, however, to the DC module. It is always on. It does not matter if this block is turned on or off. This is always powered, which, hey, cool, I get that. This really, it's meant to like charge, right? You got the charging ports. It's like a docking station. Problem with that is that a majority of the ports, like way more ports than what you get on here, is included with this. So most likely, if you want to use this out in the wild, you want to charge multiple devices, maybe a laptop, iPad, someone else's phone, a light, whatever you want to charge. You want to get the most out of your device, you're going to be using this module. But that's the problem, is the module is always on and it is always producing heat. Now you might ask, what is the significance of that? And the simple answer is heat means power usage. Just to give you an idea, because I knew I was going to be recording this video today, I set this on this desk overnight. Fully charged, left it as is. It did not drop a bar, so I'm gonna throw that out there. It did not drop a bar in how much charging it has. At least I don't think so. Yeah, it did not drop any capacity. Granted, it only goes in increments of 25%, but still it did not drop more than 25%, so that's good. But I used a Milwaukee laser temperature gun, right? So I can point at it and be like, okay, let's actually get some numbers. Because when I touch this, every time I've touched this base, it feels warm to the touch. But I wanted to get real numbers, and I wanted to get real numbers in an environment where it was just sitting there doing absolutely nothing, not turned on, not being used, charged, or anything, and then get the ambient temperature of everything else in the room, at least immediately surrounding it. So sitting on the desk overnight, the DC base, when I pointed the laser at it, had a 91.6 degrees freedom, right? Just chilling. It's just sitting here, not doing anything, just sitting here. 91 degrees. That means it's powered on, and something in there is consuming power and producing heat, which means for storability, if you don't have this thing plugged in to, like, you don't actually have it plugged into a wall or solar panel or something like that, for storability, if you want the longest possible, battery storage time, and you don't have that plugged in, you need to take it off the base, because the base is always consuming power. The top of the battery block feels like it's plastic. I'm gonna assume some sort of a fire resistant plastic, but that came in registering at 71.8 degrees Fahrenheit. And the side, of course, made of probably pretty thick aluminum, came in at 73.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Now again, when I say I touch this and it's warm to the touch, I'm talking about the base. The battery itself is not warm from the touch. However, the base, the power coming out, and the heat does go up through. So it's a little bit colder at the top and it's a little bit warmer at the bottom. So I try to measure it in the middle, but it's very obvious that all of the heat is coming out of the base of this unit. To put that in perspective, however, the table, which I know it's made of wood, came in at 65.3 degrees Fahrenheit. My little recorder that's sitting on my studio table, again, unused, sitting here all night, this registered 62.6 degrees Fahrenheit. So while everything in my studio has this 65 degree ambient temperature, 62 degree ambient temperature, just chilling, right? It's not doing anything, not being used, 62, 65 degrees. This thing's sitting at 73 degrees in the main unit, and the bottom unit is 90 degrees. I'm sorry, 91.6 degrees. That means it's using power, and that just irks me. If you're gonna take this out, camping trip, whatever you're using this for, you're gonna take this, you're probably gonna wanna take this because you're gonna wanna be able to have the extra ports. Which means you're gonna have to remember to disconnect this if you wanna make sure that you're not just losing power by carrying it in your bag. It's kind of a weird flaw, but listen to this. You can actually hear something turn on when you plug it in. So something's activating. I know it's got a charging unit in here. I know it has, the USB things in here. Like, I know what it has, but it's always on and it's not controlled by this. It's a little disappointing. I would have liked to maybe see these controlled by the block. That way, you're not sitting there burning, wasting power. I don't know how much power it's wasting, but I don't really like it that it's wasting power and producing heat all the time. Okay, moving on to some positive. That's really the only thing that I found was the USB port. This one specifically does not work, and then it's always using power. But moving on to some more interesting stuff, this can actually have like a little adapter that you can use and plug it into an e-bike. Like, not every e-bike, I'm sure there's some that are specifically tuned for it. It has like a little module addition, right? So if you have an e-bike, this could potentially give you some power. Again, don't have it, haven't used it, I've just seen it in their commercials on Kickstarter. As far as pricing goes, if you go to the Kickstarter website, they give you like this price range. There's like sales, early birds, like, it's Kickstarter, so I don't actually know what the end retail cost is gonna be, but the price range is $200 to $360. So maybe if this is on Amazon, after everything's said and done, it could be $359.99. Right now, depending on how you buy it and get into the Kickstarter, it could be $200. If you get the one with the AC charger, it's gonna cost you anywhere from $240 to $400. Now, the AC charger is still gonna obviously give you the ability to charge, but it gives you the ability to plug something in. So it could be worth the extra $40, I don't know. I guess it all depends on what you really want to plug into it. Overall, this thing is a 300 watt hour or 80,000 milliamp hour power bank, and it's meant to take into the wild. It's meant to accidentally be dropped and not have it broke. I mean, because 4.5 pounds, this thing's heavy. It can probably do a little bit of damage if you wanted to. If you accidentally drop it in the river, or maybe you're going through a river with a backpack and you got this thing in there, you're not gonna ruin it if it gets soaked. There's a guy who literally dropped it in a pond and just like let it sit, took it out, plugged his phone in, everything worked. So that's really cool. If you guys want to learn more about this product, I will link to the Kickstarter in the description down below. And then after the Kickstarter, if it goes to a different thing like Amazon, I will update the link as needed. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or complaints, leave those in the comment sections down below. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and have yourself a great day.